From Sci News, paleontologists discover new hadrosaur footprints in Mongolia. From prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guide Live Daily News. Paleontologists from Japan and Mongolia have uncovered fossil footprints from or of massive plant-eating hadrosaurid dinosaurs from the Cretaceous period. Let's see. Whoa, those are large footprints. I'm guessing this could have only been one animal in this region that was even bigger than the large carnivores that inhabited Mongolia around 70 million years ago, towards the beginning of the Maastrichtian stage of the Cretaceous. And that was Saurolophus osteropithecus, which is the larger species of the genus Saurolophus. Wow, those are huge, enormous. Footprints of a massive hadrosaurid dinosaur in the western Gobi Desert, Mongolia. Also, part of the Gobi Desert extends into north central China. The newly discovered hadrosaurid footprints date back to approximately 70 million years ago. One of them is around 92 centimeters or 3 feet across. Yep, that's Saurolophus. This has to be him, making it one of the largest hadrosaurid footprints ever found. The largest footprint is believed to have belonged to a giant Saurolophus. But I get really excited about that. Okay. Estimated to exceed 15 meters or 50 feet in total body length, surpassing even Tyrannosaurus and Tarbosaurus in size. Yet, in terms of weight, it's a bit of a debate with Saurolophus. It is a member of the Saurolophinae lineage of dinosaurs. So, so here's one of the more recent constructions of Saurolophus. So, Saurolophus was somewhere around 45 to 50 feet in length and could have weighed as much as 11 or 12 tons. Saurolophus is a genus of large hadrosaurid dinosaurs known from the Horseshoe Canyon Formation in Canada and the Nemegt Formation in Mongolia. Be careful with this because certain instances this has confused me before. When it mentions a couple of formations, a certain genus has been found. You have to remind yourself that it's likely referring to completely different species. So, in this terms, the smaller species of Saurolophus is found in the Horseshoe Canyon Formation over in Alberta, Canada, which existed towards a similar time, somewhere between 70 and 73 million years ago. The Saurolophus species over in Alberta was only around 3 to 4 tons, might have been around 25 to 30 feet in length. So it was less than half the size of the Saurolophus species within Mongolia at this time. Now, this wasn't the only dinosaur to inhabit the Nemegt Formation where it has been discovered. Dioplosaurus is a species of Ankylosaurinae that has been discovered here as well, along with a few other different species of Ankylosaurs, such as Tarchia. Dioplosaurus was smaller than the Tarchia species. Dioplosaurus was somewhere around 20, 22 feet in length and might have weighed just over 2,000 pounds. But also, unlike certain other ankylosaurs, it was rather spiky when talking about the specific shaped osteoderms around the armor of this animal. Um, Also, okay, when it comes to the distinct, it's a good drawing, but the distinct pointy sort of club tail at the end, not sure if that's entirely accurate. However, looking at the rest of the body, this is a really good Dioplosaurus. When you get to the very end of the Cretaceous period, so the last 4 million years, Diplodocus, like these types of osteoterms are much less abundant, and animals like Ankylosaurs from North America would have had rather smooth or just less pointy sort of osteoderms. Saurolophus, okay, according to, oh, also the Nemegt Formation is over in Mongolia. According to the paleontologist, it is one of the few dinosaur genera from multiple continents. Our discovery suggests that one of the largest bipedal animals ever known lived in Mongolia, raising hopes for the discovery of equally massive skeletal remains. There were also a few different species of hadrosaur that have been found in the Nemegt Formation, though seems like a couple of them haven't been identified yet. They're just stuck into the hadrosaurid taxon. So basically, just the group of herbivorous ornithischian dinosaurs existed within Mongolia, one of the herbivorous groups. Um, I'm not sure. Yeah, you could possibly call this a wastebasket at this point. At least what's occurring with two specimens that have been found in the region. So this is Barsboldia. This is a smaller relative of Saurolophus. It's actually, despite it being a member of the Saurolophini lineage, it's actually quite distantly related to Saurolophus. This animal was probably a bit more closely related to animals such as Edmontosaurus than it is to Saurolophus. Also, Barsboldia was somewhere around 35 feet in length and might have weighed somewhere around 4 to 5 tons. So it was a medium-sized herbivore in the region, and also had very distinct um, distinct upper vertebra that you don't see in many hadrosaurs, and it tends to be quite noticeable in different species of the Spinosaur lineage. But then, if you travel further back, somewhere around 110 million years ago, over in North Africa, there was an animal called Aranosaurus, which had a very distinct upper vertebra, which is interesting. It's not very common in the iguanodontid lineage. So this was far before Barsboldia first evolved. There were also small pachycephalosaurs within the region, and these animals for a long time were guessed to have been primarily herbivorous. But new research into the teeth, it looks like at least with the larger species of pachycephalosaur, this is Homocephaly. They were probably carnivorous, so going after different species of insects, amphibians, reptiles, possibly even smaller dinosaurs. And yes, their head was capable of inflicting severe damage, at least onto the smaller theropods within the region. Homocephaly, yeah, so these specific osteoderms. Okay, so many, if you're familiar with pachycephalosaurs, animals like Pachycephalosaurus and then possibly even Stygimoloch will come to the mind. Stygimoloch was that specific pachycephalosaur from Fallen Kingdom. Pachycephalosaurus was seen in Jurassic Park: The Lost World. But this animal, those two are much larger and lived also slightly later. Homocephaly was somewhere around 7 feet in length and might have weighed somewhere around 150 to 180 pounds. So it wasn't a very large pachycephalosaur. It's a bit of a question as to what their arms would have been used for. So this is a bit of an outdated. I mean, this is technically the Jurassic Park: The Lost World model, but there's a lot of different things that have occurred with the reconstruction of Pachycephalosaurus. Now, Pachycephalosaurus was probably a lot leaner and just not as overall bulky as this individual. Also, the dome on the top of its head would have probably been slightly shorter, and I'd say also a bit wider compared to the head. And the horns would have been much more narrow, a bit more peculiar than what you see on this model, even towards the tip of the snout. Also, when it comes to the cheek texture on the sides of the mouth, yeah, it's a bit still a bit of a debate as to how they would look. So this is from the show Prehistoric Planet, and yeah, as you can see, they have much longer horns towards the back of the skull. The dome's also shorter, but there's a lot more circumference to the overall shape. And it's also good to see that the tongue, when this animal is bellowing, is not sticking up in the air. This is a flaw that has been shown in many dinosaur documentaries as well as movies, where the tongue, especially if a T Rex is roaring, is sticking up in the air. And looking at the biomechanics of these animals, that would not have been possible. Um, at least when it comes to just overall making noises. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we've been able to tell whether or not these animals were capable of like distinct licking. It's possible. It's a bit of a question as to what their arms would have been used for because they didn't have necessarily large arms compared to their body size. I mean, they were bigger compared to something like a tyrannosaur and a belisaurid, even the mononychid theropods. But one thing is interesting is that they do have pretty much all five fingers on their forelimbs, which is and also, I think they were dexterous to an extent, which is not something you see on many species of herbivores in the region. And no, despite this animal having horns on the top of its skull, and um, I haven't heard of it, but it's possible some people might have mistakenly called the dome like a frill, like what you see on the horned ceratopsians. This animal is not closely related. They are part of Ornithischia, but they're not closely related to ceratopsians. So this is also one of the larger herbivores within the region. This is Opisthochylidae. Despite it sounding like it's a family of dinosaurs, that's the name of the genus. This is actually a member of the Saltosauridae lineage of Titanosaur sauropods. So, titanosaurs first evolved somewhere around 140 million years ago during the beginning of the early Cretaceous. It is interesting. It's like the Cretaceous started somewhere around 145 million years ago, but for 5 million years, this specific group still hadn't evolved yet, and something occurred at around that time, and they immediately um, separated into their own branch. I wonder if they originated from something related to the diplodocids, so animals like Diplodocus, Brontosaurus, Apatosaurus. Okay, let's get back onto this. The researchers also discovered a 24-meter, 79-foot long trackway consisting of 13 fossilized footprints, each around 85 centimeters, 2.8 feet across. From June 1st to 15th, 2024, we conducted a follow up investigation in the Western Gobi Desert. As a result, we discovered new trackways, including three of the largest hadrosaurid footprints ever found in a continuous sequence of 13 fossilized footprints. The identification of 14 trackways, including one found before 2018, enables the analysis of posture, walking style, speed, and group behavior, details that cannot be inferred from skeletal fossils. Um, hmm. I wonder if what they mean by group behavior is possibly there were also signs of maybe even younger individuals within a herd. We have seen this with different species of sauropods, I think even ceratopsians. We have even found it with different species of theropods, like even members of the Allosaur family, the Tyrannosaur family, for sure, and even different species of Ornithomimid, which there were animals like Gallimimus, which is one of probably the most famous ornithomimid. Then you have Ornithomimus, but from this region, it's about 13 feet in length. It might have weighed somewhere around 200 to 350 pounds, and was covered in feathers for the most part. So it's one of the ostrich-like dinosaurs. The walking style speed is very possible. In some instances, the animals might have been adjacent to a water source. They could have been running from something. They might have made a sharp turn. Who knows? They could have been fighting each other. So this is a big question. Until now, the largest known hadrosaur skeleton belonged to Shantungosaurus, discovered in Shandong Province, China, they added. So, Shantungosaurus, this was somewhere around a 50-foot long animal as well, but it wasn't necessarily, I believe, as heavily built as Saurolophus. So, it also is a member of the Saurolophine lineage of hadrosaurs, but I think it only reached like the 11-ton spectrum at most, whereas Saurolophus could have possibly been even larger. And I don't believe there are any remains of Shantungosaurus from Mongolia. However, the latest discoveries in Mongolia suggest the potential for uncovering similarly massive skeletal remains in the region. Our next goal is to uncover the full skeleton of the large Saurolophus responsible for these footprints. Yeah, it is a shame when we find these different footprints, and this happens with a wide variety of dinosaurs, even with specifically over in England, iguanodon. There are a variety of trackways from this famous ornithopod, which is also probably the predecessor to animals like Saurolophus. So, iguanodon inhabited England somewhere around 125 to 130 million years ago. And we're talking about a 4 to 5 ton animal, but there are just several trackways and the feet. Iguanodon had very large feet compared to its body size, even referring to different species of iguanodontid. So it was also probably living in a sort of swampy area. Definitely a lot of floodplains in the region. Um, yeah, well, like ducks, they were definitely quite vocal, but they wouldn't have had webbed feet like a duck. It is possible with certain dinosaurs they might have. It has been assumed with animals like even Spinosaurus they could have had somewhat webbed feet, but that's still up for debate because Spinosaurus primarily inhabited wetlands or river systems. Though there's still that debate on whether he could swim. I think he could because practically all dinosaurs were capable of swimming. It's just was he as efficient as like certain crocodiles or even something like an otter, but an otter's probably not a good comparison. Um, what did I don't think I mentioned the length or the weight. So this is Opiscolocaidae, and also the saltosaurs, which is a branch of Titanosauridae. Titanosauridae is also a part of the Macronarian lineage of sauropods, which are technically so sauropodae started off, somewhere around 228 to 233 million years ago during the mid-Triassic period. And then the sauropods that many tend to think of, like Brontosaurus, Brachiosaurus, this family, or I guess you could say order of sauropods, first evolved in the early Jurassic, somewhere around 175 million years ago. So that is when you start having the large, long-necked individuals. Beforehand, a lot of them were the plateosauromorphs. Many of them were bipedal. But the saltosaurs of the titanosaurs, they first evolved like 85 million years ago. They didn't have a very long reign. They were around for about 20 million years and then poof, gone. So, but this individual is they still, created a variety of species. This individual was around 45 to 50 feet in length and might have weighed from around 13 to 14 tons. So around the size of Saurolophus. So I'd say Saurolophus was almost like a bit of a boulder when talking about hadrosaurs, whereas this animal wasn't exactly lightly built. I mean, they were more heavily built than probably different species of diplodocids, but still would have had to have been concerned about animals such as the Tarbosaurus. This is the closest relative of Tyrannosaurus rex, but at this point, Tyrannosaurus rex had not evolved yet. There have been some instances where people might have mentioned documentaries that Tarbosaurus was over in Asia and T Rex was in North America at the same time, and that is not true. T Rex doesn't really show up till somewhere around 68 million years ago. So this is at least 2 million years earlier in Mongolia. Now, Tarbosaurus was smaller than T Rex, despite it being the largest predator within this region and technically the largest predator on Earth at this time. Tarbosaurus was around 35 to 38 feet in length and might have weighed somewhere around 5 to 7 tons. It's possible it might have become even larger. I think I've heard even 8 to 9 ton, like larger estimates of this carnivore. It also, though, unlike T Rex, so the overall skull shape is quite similar, but you can tell that it's much more lightly built. It also didn't really have to, it did not come into contact with the armored ceratopsians that T Rex did, because T Rex had to deal with animals such as, like two distinct species of Triceratops, Torosaurus, and occasionally you would go after like the soft-bodied hadrosaurs of the region. But Tarbosaurus, I think that was just one of the reasons why it wasn't as heavily built as T Rex. It's just simply it was feeding on probably sauropods, the long-necked therizinosaurs at the time. Occasionally, it might go after an ankylosaur, but usually, at least I'm guessing that these animals would have probably avoided them because it's just not worth going after 2,000 pounds of meat, and there's a high probability of you losing your femur bone from the club tail, the even Dioplosaurus. But this was just one of over 4 or 5 different species of ankylosaur in the region. So, Tarbosaurus is probably just focusing on hadrosaurs and sauropods at this point. There was also a smaller species of tyrannosaur in the region. Actually, I think there are think 3 others at least, such as like 4 different species of Aliramus, but this is specifically Raptorex. So Raptorex was somewhere around 8 to 11, no, sorry, around 8 feet in length and probably weighed around 150 pounds. There's also a very lightweight Tyrannosaur. This is an older reconstruction, and this is the full grown adult skull. It is quite shocking considering this is a member of the Tyrannosaur family, and many tend to think of animals like T Rex, Tarbosaurus, maybe something like Albertosaurus pops into your head. But despite animals like Albertosaurus being much more lightly built than Tarbosaurus, it still weighed somewhere around 2 to 3 tons, where this individual was barely 150 pounds, probably preying on smaller dinosaurs, maybe going after the Homocephaly and the Praenocephaly pachycephalosaurs within the region, or gosh, who? Oh, probably go after like smaller sauropods or younger hadrosaurs. And then the last individual is Xenobazar. So Xanabazar is actually a member of the Troodontidae family of dromaeosaurs. It was one of the larger species, not by too much when it comes to the weight. This animal was around 7.5 feet in length and might have weighed around 50 to 55 pounds. It was probably going after also younger, well, probably newborn hadrosaur hatchlings, sauropods, maybe even like newborn ankylosaurs if it could, if it's happened to come by the opportunity, and probably focused on a variety of different reptiles, amphibians, insects. Also, it did coexist with the famous velociraptor in the region, which was even smaller than this individual. Velociraptor mongoliensis was around 6 feet in length and barely 2 feet tall. And like troodontids in the region, this wasn't the only species, but the velociraptors were also covered in feathers. Now, the question is whether or not they might have hunted in groups. It is certainly possible. Okay, well, let me know what your favorite species of dinosaur is in Mongolia. And from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guide Live Daily News. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you love talking about animals, and share this show with everyone you know, because nothing is better than all animals all the time.